The chapters start with Hori, our main lead, greeting her friend Yuki as she complains about not being able to do her homework and wants to copy Hori's. While she was copying Hori's work, Yuki told her about a friend of hers wanting to ask for Hori's email and info. Declining the person's request, Hori accidentally dropped her eraser in the process. Miyamura, who was passing by, grabbed the eraser and gave it to Hori. Yuki was rather judgmental towards Miyamura and told Hori that he looked like one of the otaku people who liked collecting figurines of anime girls. Their conversation shifted, and Yuki asked if she wanted to come with her to karaoke this time, but Hori immediately declined. Although Hori wanted to do those things, there is something that her friends didn't know about her, that she kept a secret to them. Since her parents were busy working, Hori became the one to tend the house and also pick up her little brother Suda from the daycare. Although she wanted to do fun things with her friends. As a big sister, she needed to take care of her little brother, which she was used to as time went by. One afternoon, Suda had come home with a bloody nose and some stranger who he was holding hands with. Hori was slightly frantic from the state of her brother, wiping the blood out of him. The stranger, however, excused himself and was about to leave when Suda grabbed him and asked to stay. The stranger stayed and explained to Hori what had happened, but what's much surprising for Hori is that the stranger knew her name. Apparently, the stranger was actually her classmate, Miyamura. Shocked, Hori couldn't grasp how the gloomy Miyamura had become into this person. It filled her head even after school, making her slightly awkward around now that Miyamura had seen her without makeup. Hori then went towards Miyamura and asked him if he got a minute. The two then began to talk outside the classroom and talk about him coming back to her house since his brother wanted to see Miyamura again. Mayumura accepted the request and was glad that Hori talked to him again and did not ignore him. Hori told him that they were just in the same boat and there was no reason to avoid him at all. Blushing, Miyamura was glad that Hori thought of it that way and was glad that they were able to talk more. During the time Miyamura had come over to Hori's house, Hori had learned a lot of things about him. She learned that Miyamura was not an otaku at all. His family runs a bakery, he pierced himself using a safety pin in middle school, and that he is really bad at school. Hori was actually surprised that his grades were lower than her since he was wearing glasses. She assumed that it was slightly higher because of it, though it was actually the opposite. Miyamura doesn't know anything about any subject and was only excelling at physical ed. As Hori thought about Miyamura again, she felt that her first impression of him was very different from who he is, making her think that not many people knew this side of Miyamura. While looking at a flyer, Miyamura casually moved closer to Hori, which slightly caught her off guard, and noticed how long his lashes were. Hori begins to tell Miyamura the deal she was looking at, and that she needed to be there before 4 p.m. before the time runs out. Miyamura told her that going there after school might be hard, which Hori reassures that it would be fine. As long as there is no emergency committee meeting, she would be fine. But it seems that fate was against her when an announcement rang calling all of the members of the committee to report. There was only one thing Hori could do, and that was to text Miyamura to go instead of her. Miyamura slightly panicked, rushed into the market and bumped into Yuka, who saw him without his glasses. Miyamura did not pay any mind at all and rushed into the market buying 3 carts of eggs. During supper, Miyamura told Hori about this. Hori felt something in her chest and blurted out that for some reason she didn't want anyone to see him like this other than her. With that, Miyamura then told her about the things Hori did that he didn't want anyone to see but him, and that he was going to Hori's place was the time meant just for him, for them. Hori started to blush and called him a dummy for saying such cheesy stuff. He then proceeded to explain that it's not that he didn't like the person she was in school. Her getting angry like this made her much cuter. With that, Hori blushed even more and wanted to reserve this time for their eyes only, wanting this to be the only thing for both of them together. This is Hori-san, a very popular and cute girl that changes into an ordinary one whenever she's at home. And this is Miyamura-kun, a gloomy person that completely changes into someone with a lot of piercings. Because of some minor incident, the two stumbled into both of their secret lives, and now they somehow are keeping those secrets together. Hori was cooking when Miyamura frantically told her about the awful thing he learned. Apparently, the school was opening its pool and that he was panicking because he didn't know how to hide his tattoos that were spread across the side of his body. Hori didn't know if she was to be amazed or disappointed from his stupidness, since swimming is an elective and he can choose whether to take it or not. At school, Hori and her friends talked about Miyamura coming to school with a coat and not on his summer uniform, though her friends thought that the reason he wears it is because he gets cold easily. Hori knew that Miyamura was only wearing it to cover his tattoos, so now one could see. While talking about going to the pool, her friends informed Hori about an ice cream shop that opened and asked if she would go with them. Because of her responsibilities, Hori came up with an excuse to not go. The conversation then changed when the boys intervened and started interjecting into their conversation. Meanwhile, Miyamura went home feeling very hot and was thinking about getting cold drinks to ease the heat. While he was pondering about Hori going with her friends, Miyamura saw Suda with some little girl, bullying her about him being a scaredy cat after she had hit him. When he saw that Suda was upset, Miyamura intervened and went to fetch Suda to de-escalate the scene by talking to the girl calmly and telling her she was cute. Miyamuta told this to Hori, who was grateful for picking him up and giving Suda gifts even though he didn't have to. It gave her time to go shopping without worrying about her brother. Miyamura was confused and thought that he had gone out with her friends, to which she replied that she didn't go and that she has a responsibility to fill. Hori then changed the subject and asked Miyamura where was her drink that Miyamura brought. Since he forgot to buy one for Hori, Miyamura gave the drink that he was drinking. Hori then went to her room and was flustered from their indirect kiss, pondering about Miyamura being so chill about it. While Hori was in her room, Miyamura started to think about Hori not being able to do things because of her responsibility. While Hori was walking, she came across the shop that her friends were talking about and was shocked that it was really there. Coincidentally, her friend Yuki came out of the shop and called for her but did not call again since it was unlike Hori to appear plain. Hori then went home feeling very sad, thinking that it was just right for her to not go out with friends at all. Like a ray of light, Miyamura was waiting for Hori outside of her and gave a present for her out of nowhere. Hori thanked her, but Miyamura only told her that he was the one who should be thankful of her. Miyamura gave Hori a ring you display and was very happy to receive it. Dinner came, and Hori was still pondering about why Miyamura told her that she was thankful for her. Hori has always been cheerful and nice to everyone, but her being closer to Miyamura was something Toru wouldn't have thought would happen. Hori was called by her classmate when Toru went beside Miyamura to talk about him being close to Hori suddenly. Him asking if they were dating wasn't what Miyamura expected, and told him that they don't have that kind of relationship. Toru started to talk to Miyamura aggressively, pointing out that they wouldn't look good together as a couple. Miyamura agreed immediately, telling him that he was right and asked if he liked Hori. A bit shocked from the question, Toru answered Miyamura with an aggressive yes, which Miyamura didn't expect. Their conversation was starting to turn awkward when one of their classmates called them, telling them that gym would be their next subject. And just like that, the two continued their conversation into the dressing room, where Miyamura revealed that wearing long sleeves was for him to cover the huge ass tattoo that was on the side of his body. Toru was surprised, but slightly impressed. His impression towards Miyamura was slightly different from who he is entirely, making him look at him closely, wondering if Hori was the type to like this kind of dudes. As Toru discovered that Miyamura has piercings too, the two ditched the class and went on the top of the school to have a little chat. While they were talking about him getting inked and getting chummy with Hori suddenly, Toru decided to tell Miyamura that he was going to confess to Hori. Miyamura wasn't sure why he was telling this to him, but this kind of stuff depends on Hori anyways, so he doesn't really have a say on it. The two then went back to class and Miyamura was slightly avoiding Hori. When Toru asked whether it was okay to talk with Hori after class, Miyamura told Hori that he would be in charge with Suda in the meantime, giving Toru a chance to talk with Hori. Miyamura was with Suda waiting for Hori when he couldn't help but feel sad about being a third wheel if ever Hori and Toru became a thing. Coincidentally, Hori just came home and asked Miyamura to have a little chat with him. He thought Hori would tell him about not coming to her house anymore, when Hori got mad when she learned what Miyamura had said to Toru about them not making a good couple. Hori started yapping about whether he meant what he said or not, making Miyamura more confused. He then told her that he did think of that, but it was because he thought that being with her would tarnish Hori's reputation. Hori cried and told him that he shouldn't care about her reputation at all, and that she got upset when he told things like that, making her mad and beat Miyamura for telling such a thing. As they both reconcile, Hori tells Miyamura that she rejected Toru and that he thinks that if he ever sees her without makeup, he wouldn't like her. Miyamura then told Hori that Toru was a good person, and he wouldn't do such a thing, to which she replied that he should date him instead. Blushing, Miyamura was not against the idea of it, making Hori mad again. In school, Toru greeted Miyamura gloomily and was keeping himself together while he told him about what had happened yesterday. Miyamura already knew and told him that he doesn't have to tell him. Toru appreciated Miyamura greatly, making Toru his new boyfriend. While Hori and Miyamura are out shopping, the two pass by a poster of an idol with short hair that was on TV a lot. Miyamura then talked about him not being that into short hair girls, just because it just doesn't feel normal to him. And besides, the only person he walks around with is Hori and no one else. While Hori was thinking about what he was saying, Miyamura suddenly told her that he might cut his hair. As the two walked together, Yuki was just passing by when she saw Hori walking with someone she didn't recognize. When Hori got home, her mother greeted her and asked about the person who was visiting them frequently without them. Hori explained that the person they were talking about was called Miyamura, and that he looked like someone like the person you see in criminal shows, the dark, shadowy figure man. Her mother grew curious and wanted to meet Miyamura just once, wanting to talk to him. While the two mothers were talking about dinner plans, her mother asked what was Miyamura's first name, which made Hori sweat since she actually didn't know what it was despite him being her several times. Hori was contemplating what to do and was thinking about how he would ask Miyamura about his first name. Though asking him directly kinda felt rude, making her proceed to her next plan. It was to wait at the men's locker room and wait for them to yell his name. Unfortunately, the only name she got was people calling her a peeping Tom after that. A bit desperate, Hori then went to their homeroom teacher asking about Miyamura's first name. However, for some reason, the situation keeps escalating as she keeps on proceeding to go overboard, making it difficult to have a normal conversation with her. Hori became tired and tried to ask Toru about it, but he was still too hung up on her, rejecting him. Hori went to look at their bulletin board, but unfortunately Miyamura was not a smart student to end up there. She then bumped into Yuki and had a little chat with her. Hori was about to ask her about Miyamura's first name when she asked her about who she was with the other day. Hori lied and rushed out of their conversation early, making her a bit annoyed that she wasn't able to learn Miyamura's first name. Her mother mentioned Miyamura again, asking whether he would come to their house tomorrow. Slightly questioning her mom's sanity, Hori answered with a probably and saw this as a great opportunity to learn Miyamura's name. The good news was that Miyamura actually came with a cake to boot, but the bad news was that Hori was out shopping that time. Miyamura then introduced himself shyly, telling her that his name was Izumi Miyamura. Hori's mother found his name cute and told him that even though she still wanted to talk with him, she needed to go because of work and told him that he could hang out until her daughter comes back, and thanked him for everything he had done. Hori was flabbergasted to know her mom had left and wasn't there to learn Miyamura's name. While she was trying to make her say his name, Miyamura asked Hori why she was acting weird at school and asked her if she was interested in someone. Hori then confessed, making Miyamura laugh. He then wrote his name in a paper, giving it to her so that she could remember it. She kept the paper and called him by his first name while Miyamura called hers, making the room slightly weird. The two then started to make food, talking about Miyamura having a resemblance towards her mother. Suddenly the doorbell rang and Miyamura went to fetch it. Hori didn't mind at all when he heard a familiar voice behind it. Before she could stop him, he had already opened the door. Yuki was at the end of the door, staring at the shocked Miyamura, who didn't know what to do at that point. Miyamura didn't know what to do and stood at the door awkwardly when Yuki talked and asked if he was Hori's cousin. Miyamura, who was a bit confused, was stuttering when Yuki told him that she saw him the other day and asked Hori about it. Miyamura then kept up the facade, which led Yuki asking Miyamura's name. After that, Yuki had frequently been visiting Hori's house, giving snacks whenever she came by. Unfortunately, it seems that Yuki had fallen head over heels towards Miyamura without knowing it was him and was telling Hori about it, blushing and all.